Hyundai has just unveiled a new Palisade in Korea, and this is definitely going to be the exact same model that we're going to see here in the United States. And I think this looks really good. It definitely has a lot of Range Rover vibes to it. And I haven't seen a statelier design from Hyundai than this. It looks pretty cool. So all we're going to do in this video is have a look at this article from Car Scoops and see what this is all about. I do believe the same powertrains are going to come over here for the 2026 model year as well, like they have in Korea. They don't have a diesel anymore, but that's totally fine whenever I had the diesel here in the first place anyway. So before we jump into Photoshop and have a look at this beautiful design, I think it looks beautiful. Very stately, as I said, and Range Rover-esque when it comes to the styling. The interior looks great as well, even though we do have dual 12.3-inch screens in here. So before we jump in there, let's have a look at this article from Car Scoops. Going to link it down below. 2026 Hyundai Palisade drops the V6 for 4 cylinders and hybrid efficiency. Now, if you look at the size of this thing, it's a massive SUV, and having it with a 4-cylinder, it just doesn't sound right to me. I want to have a V6 in this. But when you hear the range for specifically the hybrid version, it sort of makes sense, even though still, I feel like this is the size that you definitely want to have at least a V6 in. It would be cool to have a V8, but you know, Hyundai, that's never going to happen. So this is the ICE-powered sibling to the Ioniq 9, and the new Palisade comes in both traditional gasoline and hybrid versions, both exclusively powered by 4-cylinder engine, like we just talked about. So details about the North American version remains under wraps for now, but as I said, it's probably going to be the exact same specs that we have for Korea here, and not big changes when it comes to the powertrains. The fresh exterior is joined by a more premium cabin inspired by high-end furniture, and you can definitely get those vibes. You also get a lot of Genesis vibes with this interior, which is not a bad thing at all. Additionally, the Korean spec model is available in a 9-seater, 3-row configuration with a small extra seat at the front between the driver and the passenger. And this is bigger now in every single direction compared to the old Palisade. And I feel like that is a thing that's happening with every single new model that comes out. It's always bigger than the predecessor, and that has me thinking, like, when is this going to stop? Are we going to reach a point where, you know, cars can't get any bigger because then we need to change all the infrastructure and all the roads around us? And this, again, is just bigger in every sense compared to the old Palisade. It matches the dimensions of Hyundai's all-electric Ioniq 9, but sticks to an updated version of its current unibody platform. The extended proportions, combined with a shorter front overhang and an elongated rear, lend the Palisade some very Range Rover-esque vibes. You can definitely see that here in this rear view. This, if you squint your eyes, if you just blur your vision a little bit, this definitely, I would think that this is a Range Rover if I just look at it like this. It's not a bad thing, but I don't know. Maybe they're taking a little bit too much inspiration from Range Rover, even though it is a very cool looking design. Now inside, this is cool because a lot of car companies are listening to their customers when it comes to physical knobs and buttons for climate settings. I know Volkswagen is working on it. Hopefully, BMW, which has gone totally in the wrong direction when it comes to the climate control settings. Everything in a Beamer, like the design, the user experience is so bad in BMWs these days that I hope they also go back to physical knobs and buttons. And thankfully for 2026, we still have that in this Palisade, which is great to see. You have dual 12.3-inch displays under a single curved display paired with wood accents, ambient lighting, and an island-style center console. So the interior looks very upscale here. I feel like the interior feels like it's a much more expensive vehicle than what it actually is, even though they bumped the prices a little bit. We're going to talk more about that in a second here. So in Korea, you can get the Palisade either in 3 different trim levels. You can have the exclusive, prestige, and the calligraphy. I do believe the calligraphy is probably the top of the line here. You can also have these exterior options can be paired with various interior upholstery choices, including white, navy, gray, black, and tan. I would maybe consider going with the tan interior here because I do like that a lot in the what is the Mazda CX-90 with this tan interior. It just looks beautiful and it feels upscale. So this time around, as I said, the 3.8 liter V6 is unfortunately out, but it's good news when it comes to the range. I'm going to show you that in a second here as well. So there is no mention of any 6-cylinder unit despite early reports. Instead, Hyundai offers a slightly punchier turbocharged 2.5 liter 4-cylinder engine, putting out 277 horsepower and 311 pound-feet of torque. Again, look at the size of this thing and 277 horsepower. Maybe, I don't know. I'm going to have to wait until I test drive this, but I feel like that might be on the lower end. But thankfully, there is a hybrid version here, which brings a beefier 330 horsepower. That, to me, sounds more like it. And you have, let's see how much torque you have. I don't think they say how much torque you have in the hybrid version, but probably more than 311 that you have in the base engine here. You also have a range with the hybrid of 621 miles. That is 1,000 kilometers on a single tank. And that is, of course, what is so attractive with a hybrid setup, specifically when you have a lot more power than the base engine as well. So 621 miles sounds fantastic. And thanks to the combined effort of both the turbo 2.5 liter 4-cylinder and a single electric motors, in addition to a 1.65 kilowatt hour lithium ion battery pack. That is how they get those numbers out of this beast. So as I said, the pricing has increased a little bit, at least in Korea. And I don't know how the Korean prices relate to the future US prices, but if we look at the Korean prices here, the new Palisade costs between $30,300, which sounds very cheap for, I mean, this looks like an $80,000 vehicle to me, all the way up to $41,700, which also sounds like a pretty good deal. Now, the outgoing model ranged between $27,100 up to $38,200. So it's a little bit of an increase there. And we can expect the new Palisade to reach US dealers as a 2026 model year. So probably next year, we're going to see exactly what the spec and tech are going to be like for the US version. And with that said, you know the deal. Let's jump in and check out this design. I do believe that this is the calligraphy top of the line trim level that we're going to have a look at here. You can also see the tan interior here. I think it looks classy, very, very classy, super stately design, Range Rover design in combination with some Genesis touches for the interior. So looking at the front end here, I wouldn't call this a bumper headlights, but you can see, I think that these three, or maybe the fourth piece down here as well, is also the daytime run lights here. It looks very clean, pretty static to me, but that's totally fine because this is the big SUV from Hyundai. You don't want to go over styling with this type of design. What I like about this design, if we draw some lines here, for example, this line from the hood going down here, and also these outlines for the daytime run lights, you can see how it connects to the graphics in the lower section. And this is a beautiful little touch. And also another beautiful touch is the grille. The lower section has a corner down here. You can see that this exact corner, exact angle comes back in this lower section down here. So we have a connection between the top half of the graphics right here, where all the grills, the headlights, and so on live, and then the lower section, we have connections when it comes to the lines and how everything is. If you extend the lines like this, I like to see connections exactly like we have here. Now, looking at the headlights here, these are definitely hidden inside of the front end. These are, of course, the main headlights right here being sort of tinted out. And this seems to be a trend right now to have them be blacked out. You can definitely see that in the taillights of the new Range Rover. They're completely black unless the car is on and you have the lights on. You can see that we have a clear starting point for the graphics up here, looking beautiful. Everything happens below this line. The grille looks nice as well. It's opened down here and it's covered up in the top piece on this level, which is totally fine. We have clear graphics here for Hyundai. I think Hyundai is going into this digitalized styling when it comes to their design, specifically the Ioniq cars, and also I guess now on the ICE cars as well. Now looking at the side view here, again, a lot of Range Rover coming back here. What I like about this design is we have the emphasis over the axles. We have these type of styling features right here, and also in the front axle, looking very clean and very beefy. Simple line flow in the lower section. This line carving out some of this volume in the lower section. And we have this lower trim piece that again has a clear connection what's going on in the front end, and then this silver piece comes back in the side and continues all the way into the back. That is great to see. So we have one single line, exactly like I want to see in pretty much every single car, just one line that continues all around the vehicle like we have here. These again look to be the calligraphy wheels. Pretty sure they are. I'm not sure what size they are. Probably 20s or 21s, I would say, because this is a huge vehicle and they still look pretty big on this size. Looking at the greenhouse here, again, this Range Rover style comes back in the greenhouse because you can see just how sharp this top corner is, and this is typical Range Rover design with a bit of a sloping roof line, and you have the spoiler in the back looking great, and this line as well going in from the roof rails up here, and then continues and creates this beautiful silver piece. A little play with graphics here that I do like, and you can see the taillights here shining up beautifully in the back with this Range Rover style again coming back for the Hyundai. I like that we have a sort of a connection with what's going on in the front end graphics with this little corner sticking in on the side here. And we have similar styling for the rear end, but now the corner sticks out on the lower section, bringing the design in the rear down a little bit more, making it feel a little bit more sporty. Now looking at the rear end here, first thing, what I like here for this in this price range is usually what we see in the rear is that we do have the wiper sitting like this and completely ruins the otherwise very clean rear end. But thankfully, this roof spoiler looks to be big enough and beefy enough that they actually hid the wiper underneath here. So when it's not in use, it's not going to be visible, and that is what I want to see. And that also makes it feel like a more upscale vehicle. So well done there, Hyundai. Small little detail. Looks like we have the I think maybe this is two cameras here, one camera down here and a secondary camera up here. I'm not sure if this is actually a reverse camera. We have the Palisade stamped out, spelled out in the rear end, looking very classy. H-track, probably the all-wheel drive system. We don't have any visible exhaust pipes, which I don't mind in this case. I think this is more of a luxurious vehicle, similar styling to a Range Rover, I would say again, and that means that we don't necessarily need to have the exhaust pipes visible down here, but you can see that they stick out a little bit down here. You can barely see it. It's probably just one exhaust pipes on one side, and you have the reverse lights all the way down here as well. I do think this entire piece, maybe these small LEDs right here, these are maybe the indicator lights, and then you have the big brake lights and the daytime running lights being similar to the styling that we have, of course, in the front end. Now, last but not least, this interior. Usually, as you know, I'm not a fan when we have dual 12.3-inch screens, or even like we have in the new Tacoma, which I just reviewed, a 14-inch screen on a small little truck. That felt like I had a proper TV right on the dash. No beautiful integration or anything, but here you can see that we have two lines like this that wraps across the entire dash. Beautiful ambient lighting here as well, and nice curvatures. This is what I like, the tan interior, because I think it just brings up the scale. We have some elliptical, almost pill-shaped air vents, and this is what I said when this feels more like a Genesis design, this interior. And thankfully, this section down here, it looks like we might even have some physical buttons here for, I do believe this is the radio settings. You have the hazard button there as well. You can see that we have beautiful tactile dials for the temp controls and all these buttons, heated and ventilated seats. You can see that we have that here in at least two different levels. A bunch of USBs down here, wireless charger, and I do believe that this is actually the gear selector right here, column mounted. I think they said that in the article. In addition to some cup holders here, beautiful styling for the interior. This feels like, even though we do have dual screens here for the Hyundai 2026 Palisade, they still feel like the designers put some effort into making it feel nice and well integrated in the overall interior. I also like that the door is very simplistic. There is nothing going on here except for a little bit of ambient lighting in the lower section of the door. And then looking at the steering wheel, again, just Maybe they took a little bit too much inspiration from the Range Rover, because this steering wheel definitely looks like they took it right from the Range Rover. Again, it's totally fine. It's not a big deal. So overall, this is a very, very cool design, and it's definitely going to stick out. And I do think Hyundai is also one of these brands that are figuring out their brand new design DNA with this pixelated and very static looking design. And I think it honestly is working right now for Hyundai.